May 16, 1943. RAF Scampton, Lincolnshire. 9 p.m. The final light of dusk bleeds across the airfield as No. 6 17 Squadron gathers beside their black-painted Lancasters, engines rumbling like distant thunder. Ground crews tighten the last bolts on the massive cylindrical bombs slung beneath the fuselages. Great steel drums, unfamiliar to even veteran mechanics. Their surfaces shine under the floodlights, marked with nothing but secrecy and hope. Wing Commander Guy Gibson walks the line of aircraft, boots thudding against the tarmac, his face lit by intermittent flashes from arc welders finishing final touch-ups. He pauses beneath his own Lancaster, G. George, and looks at the strange weapon fixed beneath it. To any ordinary officer, it looks absurd, a barrel-shaped object designed to spin backwards at 500 revolutions per minute. But to Gibson and to the quiet man standing a few yards away, it is the product of a mind desperately searching for a way into the heart of Germany's industrial fortress. That man, his hands tucked nervously inside his coat pockets, is Barnes Wallis, a civilian engineer, soft-spoken, unassuming, nothing like the hardened aviators around him. And yet tonight, every man here knows, without Wallis, there would be no mission, no hope of cracking open the Ruhr Valley, no chance of disrupting the beating heart of German war production. A cold wind sweeps across the runway, carrying the scent of oil, fuel, and damp spring grass. It rustles Wallis's coat as he watches the crews climb aboard their aircraft. His invention, dismissed as madness by many, delayed by bureaucracy, tested to the edge of failure, now rests in the hands of the very men he fears for most. Wallis's lips tighten. He remembers every meeting where officials scoffed at him, every test where the bomb skipped wrong and shattered. Every moment, he asked himself whether he was chasing an idea no sane engineer would touch. But the vision that struck him months before still burns in his mind. A bomb that doesn't dive, but skips, skipping across the surface of a reservoir, like a stone thrown by a boy at a pond. Skipping over torpedo nets Germany placed to protect its dams. Skipping until it struck the massive concrete wall, and then sinking deep before detonating against the foundations. A weapon designed not to fly through the fences, but to simply ignore them. Wallis, Gibson says as he approaches, helmet under his arm, "We'll bring your dam down tonight." Wallis forces a nod. "I only hope the tests were enough." Gibson glances at the bomb again. "They'll have to be." He offers his hand. The engineer takes it with trembling fingers. Out here on the open runway, amid roaring Merlins and the clatter of tools, Gibson can see the strain in Wallis's eyes. The inventor's mind is calculating everything that can go wrong: the altitude, the spin speed, the release point, the unforgiving geometry of water at 240 miles per hour. But Gibson can't afford to think about that. His job is to lead 19 Lancasters deep into Germany's most heavily defended industrial region. The crews look to him for confidence, not doubt. Somewhere far across the channel, the Möhne, Eder, and Sorp dams wait in the moonlight. Massive walls of concrete holding back billions of tons of water. Behind those walls lie Germany's coal mines, steel foundries, power stations, and transport hubs. The Ruhr Valley, the industrial brain and fist of Hitler's war machine. Gibson climbs aboard his aircraft. The cockpit smells of leather, canvas, and warm electrics. His crew, handpicked for courage and precision, strapping beneath the glow of dim lights. Navigator Hutchinson lays out maps. Bomb aimer Trevor Roper checks the twin spotlight altimeter system, engineered specifically for tonight's mission. The dial reads ready. Outside, Wallis watches the first Lancaster begin to taxi. Its engines thunder as it rolls past him, the ground shaking under its weight. He raises a hand in a small, almost involuntary gesture, as if blessing the aircraft. Another Lancaster follows. Then another. Soon, the entire squadron is thundering toward the runway, lining up into a staggered procession of shadows and spinning propellers. The control tower flashes a green signal. Gibson's Lancaster surges forward, wheels hammering against the ground. The massive bomber climbs into the darkening sky, lifting Wallis's invention, the impossible weapon, toward its final decisive test. One by one, the others follow, rising into the night like great black arrows aimed at the heart of Germany. Below them, Wallis remains alone on the runway, listening to the fading roar. He whispers into the wind, "God, bring them back." Far above, the Lancasters cross the English coast, heading east. Germany lies ahead, silent, sleeping, unaware that an idea once dismissed as fantasy is coming for its dams. The Lancasters push eastward, engines drumming in synchronized rhythm as the faint lights of England fade behind them. Ahead lies only darkness, broken by the silver shimmer of moonlit clouds drifting low across the North Sea. Inside Gibson's aircraft, the tension settles like a physical weight. The crew speaks only when necessary, short, clipped phrases carried through intercom static. The low-altitude flight keeps them skimming just feet above the water, an unforgiving altitude chosen to avoid German radar. Navigator Hutchinson calls out bearings from his chart table. Course steady, altitude 60 feet. 60 feet. A stone's throw above the waves. Behind the pilot's seat, wireless operator Bob Hutchison adjusts frequencies, listening for German transmissions. Below them, the sea churns in a slipstream, close enough that the spray sometimes kisses the belly of the aircraft. Gibson grips the control column, eyes fixed on the faint horizon. Nerves steal through him. Not for himself, but for the squadron strung out behind him like a thin, vulnerable line. Every man knows that at this altitude, a single mistake means death. One misread wave, one unexpected gust of wind, one moment of distraction. The sea ends abruptly as the Dutch coastline rises ahead, a black silhouette scattered with pinpricks of light. Crossing enemy coast, Hutchinson announces quietly. The crew snaps alert. Floodlights on the ground begin sweeping the darkness, searching for the hum of Merlin engines. Anti-aircraft posts sit hidden in dunes and farm fields, their barrels waiting like patient predators. Gibson banks the aircraft slightly. Stay low, over the dikes. The Lancaster slips inland, barely skimming the tops of windmills whose long arms turn lazily in the night breeze. Sheep scatter beneath their shadow. Canals flash silver as they race above them, each one a mirror reflecting the underbelly of the bomber. Behind Gibson, bomb aimer Trevor Roper stares down through his bubble window. I can see farms, villages, looks peaceful down there. Doesn't stay peaceful if they spot us. Rear Gunner Warwick remarks. Another voice crackles through Gibson's headset, a call from Flying Officer Martin in the aircraft behind him. "Gibson, we're taking flak, small arms from the right. Nothing accurate yet." "Keep on course," Gibson replies. "No climbs." The flak grows heavier as they press deeper into the Netherlands. Orange bursts erupt beside farmhouses. Tracer rounds arc upward like fiery whips. They whistle past the Lancaster's wings, close enough for the crew to feel the vibration of passing shockwaves. Trevor Roper watches them streak upward. They're waking up. Gibson's voice remains steady. "Let them. We're just passing through." Below, a German convoy rumbles along a country road, soldiers gazing up in confusion as the black shape roars overhead. The convoy's commander orders his men to fire, but the Lancasters already passed them. Too fast, too low. Minutes stretch into long, agonizing moments. The squadron continues weaving over rivers and trees, skirting church spires and jagged rooftops. Every mile takes them deeper into territory where no one will survive bailing out. But the men don't think about that. They think about the target. Ahead, the Rhine River glimmers like a silver blade cutting across the landscape. The Lancasters thunder over it, startling fishermen who dive for cover as the massive silhouettes sweep past. Then, abruptly, the ground rises. Gibson yanks the control column. The Lancaster climbs sharply over a ridge, its engines groaning with the sudden strain. On the far side, the land drops away into a dark valley. "Jesus," Trevor Roper breathes. Gibson levels off again at treetop height. That one wasn't on the map. "Feels like threading a needle at 240 miles an hour," Warwick mutters from the rear turret. But this is why 617 Squadron trained relentlessly for weeks, flying low-level practice runs over British reservoirs, dodging hills and towers in pitch-black darkness, memorizing the feel of their aircraft as if it were part of their body. Now, over Germany, those instincts save their lives. The moon breaks through the clouds for the first time in half an hour, and its light reveals a sight that freezes everyone's breath. The Ruhr Valley, a sprawling maze of factories, rail lines, chimneys, and power stations. The lungs of German industry. Smoke hangs in the air even at night, drifting over warehouses lit by glowing furnaces. Somewhere beyond all this, hidden behind forested hills, stand the Möhne and Eder dams, massive fortresses of concrete holding back mountains of water. Gibson lowers his voice. We're in the valley, everyone on full alert. Trevor Roper peers ahead, searching for the reservoir's black shape. Hutchinson checks his watch. We're approaching the final route. 3 minutes. Outside, the air seems heavier, the darkness deeper. Flak emplacements lie scattered across the hills like nests of glowing coals, ready to erupt the moment a bomber crosses their field of fire. The Lancaster flies on, slipping between rising slopes as if winding to the chambers of some giant, sleeping beast. The Möhne Dam is out there, waiting, and 617 Squadron is coming for it. The aircraft pushes deeper into the Ruhr Valley, the terrain tightening around it like a closing fist. Hills loom on both sides, dark and jagged. The moon disappears behind drifting cloud, plunging the valley into near pitch blackness. Inside the cockpit, every man listens to the engines, each vibration, each change in tone, because at this altitude, sound is the only warning before the ground reaches up to snatch them. Navigator Hutchinson studies his watch, then the map, then the black landscape outside. 1 minute, he says quietly. The reservoir should be just ahead. Trevor Roper leans into bomb aimer's panel, scanning the darkness. I don't see it yet. Give a moment, Gibson tells him. The dam sits low. Keep sharp. Suddenly, a shape materializes ahead, the faintest glimmer of moonlight reflecting off still water. A vast lake, invisible until the aircraft is almost on top of it. The Möhne Reservoir. There it is. Trevor Roper breathes the words, almost reverently, and then they see something else. The Möhne Dam itself. A long, gray wall stretching across the far end of the reservoir, flanked by 2 towers like sentinels. Its concrete face glows faintly under the moon, serene and ghostly. Yet beneath it lies a colossal force of water pressing against its foundations. The target. The German nets? Warwick asks from the rear turret. Trevor Roper peers through his sight. I can see the torpedo defenses, yes. They're in place. Anti-torpedo nets. Massive steel barriers designed specifically to stop underwater weapons. But they won't stop what Gibson is bringing. Gibson steadies the aircraft. We'll begin our run. Trevor Roper, get ready. But they aren't alone. Tracer fire erupts from the hillside. Thin red lines streak upward, cutting through the darkness. Cannon shells explode into black clouds lit from within by orange sparks. Flak! Warwick shouts. They've spotted us. The valley becomes a thunderstorm of gunfire. Explosions flash so close they illuminate the entire cockpit, bleaching everyone's faces white. Gibson doesn't flinch. Hold steady. We don't release from altitude. We go in low. Trevor Roper swallows hard, eyes fixed on the dam. Ready when you are. Behind them, in dozens of German houses around the lake, civilians wake to the sound of engines roaring low over the water. Curtains fly open. Farmers, factory workers, Wehrmacht reservists, everyone peers out of the black silhouettes skimming the reservoir surface. Down on the dam itself, German guards scramble from their posts, pointing at the approaching bomber. Sirens wail across the valley. The Lancaster drops lower. 40 feet. 30. 25. Altitude correct. Hutchinson reports. Spotlights on. Gibson flips the switch. 2 beams of light shine downward from the aircraft's belly, angled so that at exactly 60 feet, their circles merge into one perfect, glowing orb on the water's surface. Tonight, these simple lights are more reliable than any altimeter. The circles touch. Hold it there. Trevor Roper says sharply. Do not climb. Flak bursts behind them. A shell detonates near the starboard wing, rattling the entire aircraft and sending shrapnel whirling past the canopy. Warwick swears into the intercom as tracer streaks under the tail. Gibson keeps the Lancaster steady. Trevor Roper leans over his sight, breathing slow, precise. Closer, closer. The backward-spinning bomb whirs beneath the fuselage, its engine humming like a saw blade, building momentum for the critical release. Speed to 40, Hutchinson calls. On it, Gibson replies, adjusting the throttle by the slightest fraction. They rush toward the dam, the towers growing larger, the concrete wall filling the bomb aimer's view. Another flak burst lights the reservoir, the shock wave jolting the aircraft. But Trevor Roper doesn't blink. Steady, steady. Gibson's heartbeat thunders in his ears. The dam looms ahead like a colossal gray cliff. Release, release. Trevor Roper shouts. Gibson hits the button. A violent jolt rocks the Lancaster as the cylindrical bomb drops free. Immediately, it skips, one enormous leap across the surface of the water, then another, throwing up sprays of silver in the moonlight. It bounces like a giant stone hurled with impossible force. The bomb slams into the dam's face, drops beneath the waterline, and sinks. Climb, 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 Warwick yells. Gibson yanks back on the control column. The Lancaster claws upward as a massive explosion erupts beneath the surface. A column of water bursts high into the air, smashing against the dam's wall. The shock wave rattles the bomber even at altitude. Trevor Roper watches the dam intently. Come on, come on. For a moment, nothing. The dam stands still, unbroken. That wasn't it. Trevor Roper whispers. Gibson presses the intercom. Gibson here. First run complete. Dam still intact. Next aircraft, begin your attack. Behind him, the rest of 617 Squadron sweeps into the valley, one by one, preparing to make the same deadly run he just survived. The night is far from over. As Gibson climbs away from the blast plume, the reservoir spreads out beneath the Lancaster like a sheet of shattered glass, rippling from the force of the underwater detonation. The dam still stands, solid, unmoved, defiant. But the mission is far from over. Next aircraft is moving in, Hutchinson reports, wiping sweat from his brow. It'll be Martin. Gibson banks sharply, swinging wide to give the next Lancaster a clear run. Down below, German searchlights lash across the sky, their beams converging as more flak batteries awaken along the hillsides. From his cockpit, Gibson watches Martin's bomber skim low over the reservoir, its engines glowing faint orange in the darkness. The bomb beneath it spins faster and faster, a blur of steel. The searchlights snap toward him like predators spotting prey. They're locking onto him, Warwick warns. Flak erupts around Martin's aircraft, each burst lighting up the lake in rapid flashes. Still, the bomber holds steady, dropping lower, until it nearly scrapes the water surface. Gibson mutters under his breath, Hold it, Martin, just hold it. The silhouettes of the dam's towers loom ahead of the oncoming bomber. Trevor Roper whispers, Come on. Then, a bright streak, a flash. Martin's bomb drops perfectly. It strikes the water, skips 3 times, then slams into the dam. The explosion that follows is even larger than the first, a towering geyser water bursting skyward. The shockwave batters even Gibson's aircraft. But as the spray clears, the dam remains intact. Gibson swears under his breath. Still standing. Cracks. Trevor Roper asks. None visible, Warwick answers grimly. The German gunners tighten their barrage, anticipating more bombers. Searchlights stab across the reservoir like white-hot spears. Flak trails in the air like fireflies before exploding into deadly clouds. Hutchinson checks his chart. 3rd aircraft preparing to run. At that moment, the radio crackles. Gibson, this is Young. Beginning run now. Young's Lancaster swings in, hugging the hills, engines roaring at maximum power. The searchlights catch his aircraft instantly. Thick beams cling to it as flak detonates ahead, behind, above, turning the bomber into a glowing silhouette punched through by light. The crew watches in frozen horror as Young dives into the wall of enemy fire. Come on, Young, Warwick whispers. At the last possible second, Young releases his bomb. It skips once, twice, 3 times, and detonates directly against the base of the dam. This explosion is different. Deeper, heavier. The lake seems to convulse as a huge white plume erupts upward. The shock wave races across the water like a rolling earthquake. Trevor Roper leans forward. Look at the wall. A thin, jagged line appears across the face of the dam. A fracture. Gibson's breath catches. We got it. The fracture widens, slowly at first, then faster. Chunks of concrete fall away, swallowed by the black water below. Then the entire center section of the Möhne Dam gives way with a deafening roar. A tidal wave of water bursts through the gap, crashing down the valley in a churning wall of destruction. Factories, power stations, bridges. Everything downstream finds itself in the path of billions of gallons of unleashed water. Dam breached. Warwick shouts triumphantly. She's gone. The crew breaks into cheers. Gibson exhales a breath he's been holding since the first run. Below, the valley is transforming into a torrent of white water. Moonlight glints off the cascading flood as it tears through the riverbeds and villages, sweeping away roads and railway lines. Germany's industrial heartland, carefully fortified, meticulously defended, has just suffered a blow it never expected. Gibson presses the intercom. All aircraft, Möhne is breached. Repeat, Möhne is breached. Proceed to secondary targets. He turns his Lancaster toward the next valley, the Eder Dam. Trevor Roper glances at him. We're going after the second one. Gibson nods. Until the job is done. Behind them, the broken Möhne continues to roar as water surges through its shattered middle. Searchlights flicker in confusion. Artillery falls silent in shock, and the Ruhr Valley wakes to a catastrophe engineered by a man once dismissed as a dreamer. Barnes Wallis's impossible idea has just proven very, very real. May 17, 1943. Ruhr Valley, Germany. 1:56 hours. From the instant the charge detonates inside the Möhne Dam, the night transforms. For a heartbeat, there is silence. No roar, no crash, just a strange, muffled thud rolling through the valley like a giant's pulse. Then the world erupts. A plume of water blasts upward, lit ghostly white by the fading flare light. It rises higher than the dam itself, a towering column that bends in the wind before collapsing in a violent cascade. The concrete wall shudders, cracks, then, with a sound like the earth tearing in two, the central span gives way. A rushing wall of black water, 4.5 billion gallons, explodes outward. Gibson watches from the cockpit, stunned. Dear God! His voice barely escapes his throat. It's not a victory cry. It's disbelief, awed and horrified. Behind him, flight engineer Hutchinson grips the frame of the cockpit window. We actually did it. Sir, we... But Gibson's eyes snap from the collapsing dam to his formation. Guess clear, he orders. Now! The Lancasters roar away just as the valley below disappears under a massive boiling surge. Factories, rail lines, farmhouses, everything in its path is swallowed. Miles downstream, the roar can be heard like an approaching storm. The Möhne Dam is gone, but the job isn't finished. Eder Reservoir, 2:45 hours. Second wave. Squadron leader Guy Gibson's voice crackles over the radio. Target 2 is unguarded but difficult. Watch the crosswinds. The Eder Dam sits deep between steep hills, no flak batteries, but a nightmare approach. Pilots must weave through the valley, drop, climb, drop again, then release within seconds of leveling. Pilot Henry Maudsley attempts the first run. The bomber schemes a valley floor, engine screaming. Navigator Robert Henderson calls out altitudes in rapid bursts. 80 feet, 70, steady, steady. The bomber begins to level, but a sudden gust shoves it sideways. Maudsley aborts, pulling up sharply, narrowly missing the cliffs. Too rough, he mutters, sweat dripping. We try again. They loop around. Another attempt. Another abort. Each run drains fuel and nerves. Gibson, circling above, watches anxiously. The Eder must fall. The planners believe the flooding here would cripple major war factories. Finally, pilot Les Knight of Lancaster AGN N for Nancy begins his approach. His voice is calm, focused. Bomb aimer Edward Johnson lies prone in the nose blister, staring straight down at the spinning weapon beneath them. "Stand by," Johnson whispers. Knight's hands hold the controls perfectly steady. No flak, no searchlights, just a thin margin between success and disaster. Now! The bomb drops. It bounces once, twice, 3 times, then strikes the dam at precisely the right depth. For a moment, nothing. Then the night flashes white. A deep rumble follows. The Eder Dam shakes, cracks form, and the structure collapses inward like a stone fortress pulled apart by invisible giants. Another ocean of water surges into the valleys. The second dam is gone. High above, Gibson finally exhales. The 2 largest targets of Operation Chastise, destroyed in a single night by a weapon every expert once said was impossible. Barnes Wallis, pacing nervously back at RAF Scampton with a radio operator, doesn't yet know the results. But at that exact moment, 2 dam breaches, miles apart, are rewriting the geography of the Ruhr, and proving his lifetime's gamble was right. RAF Scampton, England, dawn May 17, 1943. The sun is only beginning to rise when Barnes Wallis steps outside the operations room, unable to sit any longer. His hands tremble. His eyes are red with exhaustion. He has waited all night, pacing in circles, replaying every possibility: success, failure, catastrophe. He designed the weapon. He fought for it. He believed in it. And now, young men have flown into death's jaws carrying it. The first Lancaster appears as a tiny speck in the pale orange sky. Wallis stops breathing. As the aircraft descends, he counts the crew positions through the glass nose. 7 silhouettes. They made it. Minutes later, Gibson limps into the briefing hut, pale, shaken, but alive. His uniform smells of cordite, mud, and burned rubber. Behind him, Hutchinson and the others slump into metal folding chairs, silent, hollow-eyed. Gibson removes his gloves slowly. "Gentlemen," he begins hoarsely, "the Möhne and Eder are both breached." A low gasp ripples through the room. Wallis sinks into the nearest chair, head in his hands. They did it, but Gibson isn't finished. He continues reading down the list of expected returning aircraft. AJM, AJJ, AGS. One after another, silence follows their names. Empty chairs remain empty. Maudsley never made it back. Shot down over Germany. Young, brilliant, fearless. 3 more Lancasters lost. 53 airmen gone. Wallis stands abruptly, his face contorted with grief. He staggers into the hallway. Inside the empty corridor, he collapses against the wall and breaks down, sobbing violently, the weight of each casualty smashing into him like falling stones. This was his dream, and it cost men their lives. The Ruhr Valley, Germany. Same morning. Sirens wail across the flooded landscape. Factories are silent. Power stations disabled. Rail lines wash away. Mines drown beneath the surge. Workers cling to rooftops. Roads vanish into churning rivers. At the Möhne, a patrol of Wehrmacht engineers stares in disbelief. A dam said to be invulnerable is now a colossal wound-spilling chaos across the west. Upstream, twisted steel, smashed workshops, uprooted forests. Everything has been devoured by the torrent. The German High Command realizes instantly the Allies have discovered a new kind of warfare, precision engineering fused with unprecedented daring. And the psychological blow is just as brutal. If the British could destroy 2 of Germany's most important dams, what else could they reach? Back in England, as reports confirm the destruction, the loss list grows longer. When the final tally is complete, the reality is stark. 19 Lancasters took off. 8 were lost. Only 77 men returned. Operation Chastise was a triumph, but one paid for in blood, fire, and disappearing call signs. Gibson receives the Victoria Cross. Several others received Distinguished Flying Crosses and medals for courage, but when Wallis is informed, he responds only with a quiet whisper. "It is not for me. It belongs to them." That night, Wallis walks alone along the runway where the Lancasters had departed just 24 hours earlier. Empty revetments line the field. The quiet is haunting. He runs his hand along the cold metal of an unused upkeep mine, remaining on its stand. its surface still bearing chalk notes from technicians. He had proven the doubters wrong. The impossible had become real. The dams had been shattered. Yet the victory doesn't feel like triumph. It feels like a burden. As he stares across the airfield, he realizes something profound. In war, even brilliance comes with shadow. And dreams, no matter how noble, can cost the lives of heroes. England, months later. The hangars at Scampton hum with new activity, fresh squadrons, new aircraft, upgraded equipment. But tucked away in a quiet corner of the base, Barnes Wallis stands alone inside a storage shed, staring at the last remaining live upkeep mine. Dust has begun to gather on its curved surface. The chalk markings are faded now. The war has moved on. Wallis places his palm flat against the cold steel. This bomb, this strange, skipping creation, was born from math desperation and imagination. It changed the war, but it also changed him. He thinks of the airmen who never returned. He thinks of Maudslay's confident smile, Young's sharp wit, Hopgood's fierce determination. He thinks of Gibson's weary eyes the morning after the raid. The achievement is extraordinary. The cost is unforgettable. Germany, late 1943. The scars of Operation Chastise remain carved into the Ruhr. Repairs are underway. Thousands of forced laborers struggling to rebuild shattered dams under tight SS supervision. Concrete mixers thrum day and night. But the psychological damage lingers like a wound that refuses to close. The German public had been told the dams were unbreakable. Now, entire cities whisper nervously about the Allies' newfound reach. Goring rages in meetings. Speer scrambles to patch industrial gaps. Hitler fumes about British terror weapons. But deep inside the Wehrmacht's engineering corps, a chilling realization spreads. If the Allies can skip bombs across water, what new ideas will they unleash next? The Dam Busters raid becomes a symbol, not just of destruction, but of ingenuity overpowering fortifications once believed eternal. Back in Britain, Barnes Wallis returns to his work with renewed determination, but something has changed in him. His ideas are now guided by a new philosophy. No invention is worth more than the men who carry it. He designs new weapons, but he fights even harder for safety measures, better aircraft design, reinforced crew positions. He becomes not just an engineer, but a guardian of the very airmen who depend on the devices he creates. Years later, pilots who work with him remember one thing above all. He cared, truly cared. Every bolt, every wire, every calculation. He saw a human life attached to it. May 17, 1963, 20th Anniversary Memorial. An older, grayer Wallis stands at the edge of a memorial ceremony held for the 617 Squadron. The air is crisp, and the reeds arranged at the base of the granite monument flutter gently. Families gather. Wives who never remarried, sons who never met their fathers, comrades who still hear the roar of Lancasters in their dreams. Gibson is not there. He died in 1944, shot down during another daring mission. His absence makes the ceremony ache even more. Wallis steps forward, lays a wreath, and whispers, "You prove the impossible, and the world will never forget your courage." His voice cracks, but he does not hide it. Because the story of the Dam Busters was never just about a weapon. It was about men. Young, brave men who flew into darkness carrying a bomb that shouldn't have existed, and forged it into one of the most daring achievements in military history. Legacy. The impact of Operation Chastise echoes far beyond 1943. It reshaped military engineering. It changed the way nations viewed strategic infrastructure. It demonstrated that innovation could topple giants. And it immortalized a group of airmen who defied odds, defenses, and fear itself. Today, the tale of the bouncing bomb stands as a testament to something deeper than physics or explosives. It is a story of how imagination, combined with courage, can break barriers no one believed possible. A reminder that in the darkest hours of war, human ingenuity can shine brighter than any searchlight sweeping the skies. The Dam Busters flew into legend. And Barnes Wallis, the quiet engineer behind it all, proved that sometimes impossible is just the first step.